What is up, Evangelion fans? Simon here. Welcome to Hannatalk for 2020. Hope you're doing fantastic during these crazy times. And I am here with my very first guest for the year. Now, she is a voice actress who's best known for her breakout role as Asuka from Evangelion, but over the last few years, she has starred in series such as Fate, Kalied Season 2 as Sella, Amaji Brilliant Park as Morphle, Girls on Panzea as Midoroko Sono, and last year, celebrating 20 years of the series, reprised her role as Nojiko in the One Piece TV special episode of East Blue. Please welcome the wonderful Tiffany Grant.
Oh, thank you. That was a lovely introduction. I appreciate that.
That's absolutely no problem at all. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. Staying indoors like everyone around the world right now, I guess.
Which of course led into that message I talked about, and of course I think like many of us we're having to go through at the moment. So it's pretty crazy during that. And during this time with the outbreak that's going on, how have you been keeping up the voice acting side of things up during this time?
Well, actually, most of the work that I've been doing for the last couple of years has actually been from my home studio. Now, you did mention episode of East Blue that I worked on last year, and I recorded that. I live in Atlanta, which is on the east, sort of the east coast of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Not really like right on the ocean, but anyway, just to give people an idea if they're not familiar. But in any case, I did record that remotely in a studio in Atlanta, but the majority of the work that I've been doing for a couple of years, video games and other voiceover stuff, I've been doing it actually at my house, so that's pretty good. Since I can just do it where I already am.
Fantastic. And that's really great to see that you've been keeping that up even for the last couple of years before this outbreak started happening. So that's fantastic. And speaking about, of course, with One Piece, before we start moving ahead into this, I should start off with saying that I've watched through all 574 episodes of the dubbed series for where the dub has officially stopped.
Holy cow, that's amazing.
It's pretty spectacular. And I actually got into I got into a couple of the movies after the series at that point because I know that the films themselves are not supposed to be considered canon to the main series, as far as I know. Now, and you mentioned about this one specific character during, apart from Nojiko, you got to play another certain character in the series, which which you described as like a woman with a fish bubble on like a fish bowl on her head, like a Mysterio from Spider-Man or something like that. And I actually found out the name of the group of characters that belongs to, which is the Celestial Dragons. So
yes, the Celestial Dragons. Yeah, they're very haughty sort of individuals, and I had a fantastic time playing that character. Her name was Shalulia.
Yes.
And I specifically remember the very first scene that she was in. And this is so horrible, but it really is fun sometimes to play terrible people. And she kind of had like a servant, really kind of more like a slave that she had. She's really overworking the poor guy, and he kind of falls over, and her line is something like, "Oh dear, that one's broken. Please, Father, can I have another one?" It's something like that, It's like she just sees people as being so disposable. And like you said, they have these sort of big fishbowl things on their heads, and it's basically because they don't want to have to breathe in the same oxygen as all the sort of mere peasant folk who are around them. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. She was a really horrible person, but it was kind of super fun to play that.
It was absolutely fantastic, and it definitely looked into it definitely explored like a different side of the One Piece mythology, because I know for a fact that with the series, because of how long the series has gone on for, like the reason it's lasted so long as it has is because of the creator just building out the mythology so constantly with new ideas and teasing out concepts and such like well in advance before we even start getting into those sort of ideas and paying those off in such huge ways. So I think that was the first time that we really got into the Celestial Dragons at that point. Like we really started digging into it at that point, as well as that was obviously before leading up to the big Marineford arc, and of course the team splitting up before going into the post time skip. So it's really, really amazing. So
I did. Now, see, a lot of people do know that I was Nojiko and Shalulia. I've had quite a few people that have spoken to me about that character, my celestial dragon character. But I did actually play another character in One
oh
Piece. Oh yes, yes, and I bet nobody even knows this one. And it's one of my very favorite things to do, which is playing critters, because I'm a big fan of playing critters. So in episodes, I had to look it up, I have to admit, episodes 328 and 329, I played some flying fish.
yeah,
And they just
right.
made funny sounds, but yes, I was some flying fish, so
Oh
that was a lot of
wow.
fun for me as well.
Yes, and that was during the same arc I think it was, which the Sabaody Archipelago arc I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little boring. Let's see. Shalulia was episodes, just FYI, because I'm looking at it, 391, 94, 96, 97, 98, 99, and 408. So,
Oh. Wow. That's
yeah, so about like 7 episodes of Shalulia. So there's a, pretty nice little chunk there.
that's just absolutely insane. That's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Now, as many fans will know, and especially to voice actors and anime fans will know, is that a lot of anime series are based on, of course, manga that they take
Sure.
inspiration for. That is based on that they take inspiration for in the creation of that series. Now, have
Mm-hmm.
you ever read the manga for any anime series that you've worked on before you started working on the series, or even after you've worked on
Mm.
that series?
Some of them before and some of them after. It depends on what my participation is. For example, I did the script adaptations for a clamp show called Angelic Layer, and that was based on a 5-volume manga series. So I did, because it's pretty short, I did read that manga series before I worked on it. Um, the the anime is actually much better than the manga, in my opinion, on that one. But yeah, so some of them, and then like Evangelion, for example, I've read pretty much all of the various manga series
Mm-hmm.
associated with Evangelion. I'm a couple of volumes behind on Shinji Ikari Raising Project, but to be honest, that's really my least favorite of the Ava manga series. Basically, if you haven't read it, this is what it is. Shinji falls down a lot and ends up with his face in one of the girls' chests or up their skirt. He's very clumsy and he always falls down with his head on some of their body parts.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, of course, the Sadamoto manga, that's really the gold standard. So that was excellent.
Wow. Well, I actually did remember looking up a little bit about the Evangelion manga because I know there's various types of it out there because I know there was one that was done
Mm-hmm.
before the anime series was created, but the creator of the manga I think said specifically that it was not meant to be based on like the anime adapting that specific
Uh-huh.
manga. It was meant to be more of a
Oh,
companion piece to that one.
yeah, okay. You're 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 sort of close to the truth here. So Evangelion as a property, as a story, was co-created
Mm.
by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto and Hideaki Anno. They are the co-creators of the Evangelion universe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So they are both equally canon. They are both original valid versions of the story. So both of those are real. But Sadamoto, there are a lot of similarities in the earlier volumes of the manga to the TV series. But of course, the manga kept going for a long time after the TV series was finished because it only took the
Right.
TV series, like a year or so to come out, whereas the manga was going on for a long time. Um, but yeah, so they're both canon. They're both the original creations of the story, just kind of two different versions of what might have happened in that universe. And then there have
Right.
been a lot of other spin-off versions of the manga as well,
Right.
like
Right.
Angelic Days and Shinji Ikari Raising Project, and the detective agency one, which I actually really liked. That was only a 4-volume one, I think, but very good.
Wow. Yeah, I absolutely had no idea about that. Like, so for anybody out there that are like Evangelion historians, for that matter, you'll probably know a lot more about that than I will. But for me, just hearing that now, it kind of like reminds me a little bit of like the Star Wars universe in that way, because I know for a fact that during post the original trilogy, they did the Legends saga, which was, of course, on the Thrawn trilogy and all that kind of stuff. But then cut to Disney getting the rights to Lucasfilms. They basically said, "Oh yeah, the Legends stuff, that's not canon anymore. We're establishing our own canon this time." But they still took inspiration and ideas and concepts from the Legends series and putting it into the new stuff as well. So. Yeah, I think there was a funny quote I heard from Daisy Ridley who said that no, actually it wasn't from Daisy Ridley. It was from one of the writers on the Star Wars movies who said, "I've been working on God knows how many projects for Star Wars, and I don't even know what is canon anymore."
Right. I think it's kind of like, well, we don't want that whole thing to be canon, but we'll just sort of take out the bits that we liked and we'll use those, kind of like that.
That's definitely true on that. You hit the nail right on the head with that one there. And there are even some aspects from the manga that's for some weird reason they never put it into the anime for that matter. Like for example, one of the biggest questions for One Piece was with regards to the scar that Luffy has underneath his eye. I don't think that they ever got into explaining about that during the anime, except for the TV specials. But they actually explain about it in the manga straight up in the very first volume, right in the very first volume where he gets that scar from. So,
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, they're different mediums, and so a lot of times there are just going to be differences in the storytelling, and that's just a fact of how that is.
absolutely. Or maybe they're just saving ideas and concepts like that for just a little bit later when it starts to become more important or something. I mean, we all know that One Piece is going to be lasting for quite a very long time, as the creator
Yes.
once said. So we'll
Yeah.
just have to wait and see what happens with that one, really.
To infinity and beyond.
Exactly, that's exactly it right there. Now, speaking about, of course, with like obviously with Evangelion back in the 90s to anime where it is now, what has been your opinion about the quality and state of anime, the way it is now compared to how it was back in the 90s?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like the Wild West back in the 90s. There was, a lot of different creativity, different things that were happening. I wonder sometimes if something like Evangelion, if that could happen now, um, with the tightening profit margins in the anime industry over the last several years since you've had streaming and so forth. You kind of see a lot of these same concepts and storylines that are just sort of recirculated over and over and over again. So, yeah, I don't know. They kind of think like, well, this is not a very profitable industry, anime, so we've got to keep just making this stuff like, oh, people like that, well, let's just make 20 more shows like that one. So there's a lot of that, and there's so much more talking. There's so much more talking in shows now than there used to be. There used to be a lot more action versus talking, and now it's gone to a lot more talking versus action.
Right.
Just some of my personal comments, things that I've noticed about it.
Right, right. Because I have discovered a lot through like I mean the state of some anime like now compared to how it was back then because because there has been several types of anime that have been working under several companies, for example. Like if you watch an anime like from under Funimation, for example, like you typically think of the more generalized like anime that's more targeted towards general audiences without necessarily going into such crazy ideas or concepts. They go like, oh, maybe that's just a bit too hardcore for us. Whereas on the opposite end of that, whereas on the opposite side of that, like ADV Films, for example, which did Evangelion, and I think it even did.
Right.
And I think it did. I think it didn't ADV Films also do Elfen Lied as well?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
That's right. And several other anime titles that would have been considered too like harsh or intense for
Yeah.
generalized audiences. So
Mhm. It's Elfen Lied. Just have to say
Elfen
Lied.
Lied,
It's
right.
German. It means poem or song. Yeah.
Right, right. So, so it just, I guess it just really depends so much on really what kind of anime that you want to see yourself personally. If you're more
Mhm.
into the more hardcore kind of stuff, or if you're into the more kind of balanced side of it, which doesn't go too far
Yeah.
off into slightly left of center kind of
Yeah.
things.
I mean, you can look at a lot of the. I mean, Funimation has released obviously a wide range of shows, but they're one of the companies that obviously has released some of those really long running titles that are more in the mainstream, like Dragon Ball and One Piece, Fairy Tale, some of these things that just Case Closed, which was Detective Conan. These shows that run on and on and on and have hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and so that was kind of one of their main focuses was doing these huge, mega, long running titles.
That's definitely true on that. And speaking about, of course, with you mentioning about Detective Conan, for example, because of in
Mm-hmm.
the last few years we've had quite a few remakes of several anime in the last couple of years. We just had the remake for Berserk back in 2016, and we also just a few days ago had Fruits Basket Season 2, Episode 1 of the remake
Wow.
series. Yes, and because most
Wow,
of the
Fruits
original
Basket. That is, wow, that's from a while ago. And that was Funimation. Fruits Basket, wasn't it?
that was Funimation, yes, because they got
Mm-hmm.
back
Yeah.
they got back I think about 90% of the original cast for that remake of the
Mm.
series. So they
Mm-hmm.
kind of took it down the very kind of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood kind of series. And you could also say the rebirth of Evangelion in some way in bringing back the
Mm-hmm.
original kind of actors for that series. But I
Mm-hmm.
think with Brotherhood, but just like with Brotherhood, they're trying to adapt it more closer to the manga because the original series
Mm-hmm. Right.
went slightly off from where the manga had gone because they tried to condense the storyline into 26 episodes of one season.
Right.
But I think
Mm-hmm.
they originally planned to do season two of that, but now they said, you know what? Let's just restart the whole thing all over again. Let's bring back all the original actors and let's
Mm-hmm.
adapt it the way it's supposed to be done. So it's it's kind of things like that really. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
going on to that, I think one anime that I would really love to see them do a remake of, because I don't think they've ever got to finishing the English dub for this series, is Detective Conan.
Yeah, that didn't. No, they didn't finish that show that had a lot of episodes, but I did two. I did two episodes many many years ago. Like 2004. I did a couple of episodes of Detective Conan, or um, I can't. Case closed.
Case
But
closed.
it's
That's
based
it.
on
That's it.
everything. Case closed. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's definitely the anime I would love to see them do a revival of, or even if they were to just do a
Mhm.
remake of, that'd be totally awesome as well. But what's
Mhm.
like one anime that you've worked on personally, would you want to see like
Mhm.
a revival of, or like a remake of it if the opportunity arises?
Well, one thing that's been discussed a lot for the last couple of years is a third season of Infinite Stratos, and I really think there's a very good chance that that's going to happen. It's a series that's based on a it's an anime series that's based on a series of light novels, and I'm not really sure at this point where they are with the light novels as far as finishing that up. So I do think at some point there's going to be a third season of that, so I would definitely be interested in participating
Fantastic.
whenever that comes along. Oh, and of course there's more girls in Panzer, so I don't know if anybody has licensed that yet. Hopefully that'll be Sentai, and if they get the next Girls in Panzer film, well, my character Sotoko, um, Midoriko Sono, she's got a pretty good part in that. So yeah, crossing
Fantastic.
my fingers that that's going to happen in the near future.
Fantastic. And definitely would look forward to that when the chance arises for that. Now, with now of course there has been several like review. Have you ever read like any reviews for any anime that you've worked on? And if so, what was the funniest review you've ever read?
What was the funniest review?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've read some. I kind of tried to stop reading them a long time ago, honestly, because as many people before me have said, if you're going to believe the good ones, you have to believe the bad ones too. And so, yeah, there can be some pretty pointed criticism. It's been a while since I've read a review of anything, so I don't know. It's so hard to say. I remember many years ago, one of the first video games that I worked on. It was Deus Ex 2: Invisible War, and when that came out, it was very well received, and the voice acting was especially well regarded and well reviewed critically, and the game was, did very well. And I once bought a gaming mag, and I'm not even a gamer, and I've never played it, but I bought a gaming magazine because there was a review in it that said something like, and the voice acting actually didn't suck. So something like that was the review, or the voice acting actually wasn't terrible, or something to that
Wow.
effect. And I actually bought that magazine because of that glowing review of our talent.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
just absolutely
Mhm.
crazy. I think I remembered reading a review, coming across this one review for this one series that you did, which I think was kind of like a Greek mythology anime series or something like that, which is like a very action episodic kind of anime. I can't remember what the name of it is, but there was one line in there, and I'm probably paraphrasing this one, where it
Mhm.
said they called this one person called the anime the most not unwatchable anime I've ever seen.
That's terrific.
And I'm going
That
like,
is terrific.
and I'm trying to make sense of that comment, going like, all right, not unwatchable. I'm going like, yeah, just say watchable, buddy. The most watchable anime I've
Mhm.
ever seen, right there. Like, it means the exact
Mhm.
same thing. So,
Well, I don't think he was trying to praise it that much, though. I mean, it's like to say something's not unwatchable, well, that's not exactly the highest praise that something could ever garner.
yeah, well,
Yeah, well, all I can say is whatever it was, we tried. God bless us, we tried.
fantastic. Now, before we start getting into talking about your Evangelion and of course the latest project you worked on, we have a few fan questions here from
Oh, yes.
From local Melbourne boy Stephen Bilasby. Shout out to you, Stephen, where he asked,
Okay.
"What was the
Mm-hmm.
process in getting your first role, and how did that compare to getting the role that you consider the one that made your career?"
Wow, that's a great question. Well, for starters, I first started working in anime back in February of 1994. So at that time, anime fandom was in a very nascent form. There were very few conventions in the United States. They had just started up. There were maybe two or three in the whole country. Anime fandom as a thing, very small. Most people did not know the word anime. I did not know the word anime. My experience in acting was strictly in doing theater, and there was a brand new company that had started up in Houston, Texas, which is where I'm originally from,
Hmm.
and they had released a couple of shows that were subtitled. They were going to dub their very first show, and they reached out to their friends and said, "Hey, we're gonna dub this show. So if anybody knows some actors, tell them to come to our audition." And that's what happened. Is somebody who knew one of those guys knew me and said, "Hey, Tiffany, I remembered that you were an actor." So this is like somebody that I had known from junior high who knew that I did theater. And so he's like, "Yeah, I remember heard that you're an actor and this is what they're doing, and are you interested in that? I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So I called and made an appointment, and I went down and I was hired, and I was the first person to be hired as an anime actor in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Now, Texas is notable because this is where ADV Films started, and soon after that's where Funimation started, and between Houston and the greater Houston area and the greater Dallas area, and also for a few years there was an anime recording studio in Austin as well, that's also in Texas. There have been maybe tens of thousands of people who have been acted in anime in Texas since then, but I was the first one. I was the first one who got hired. So it's a little bit of an unusual story in that I was the first one. But it's not unusual for the fact that I was an actor and I found out about an audition and I went to it and I got a job. So there's that. Now, the thing that's different about Asuka is when I first recorded for Asuka, that was about 3 years later. And so I had experience working on several shows by that point, and I never auditioned specifically for the role of Asuka. So basically my audition for the role of Asuka was having portrayed several kind of bossy, boisterous characters before that, like Maki and Burn Up, and the character of Kome Sawaguchi in Blue Seed. And I was completely unaware that they had started working on Evangelion or casting for that show at all. And some people who were familiar with the show, people who worked at ADV, kept coming into Matt Greenfield's office. He was the writer, director, producer on the Evangelion TV series. And people kept coming up to Matt and going, oh, so Tiffany is going to play Asuka, right? Because it was just somehow like kind of assumed, like, oh, Tiffany's Asuka, you know? So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how all of that came together. And then I was Asuka. And so that's it.
Wow.
Hopefully that answers his question.
Absolutely. That is absolutely fantastic. And hearing that story about where you said that you didn't audition for, that you actually never auditioned for the role of Asuka at that point, actually reminds me of the story of, I think it was Chadwick Boseman when he was cast in Black Panther, that when it got to casting their version for T'Challa, aka Black Panther in the movie, all the Marvel studio people collectively said they never auditioned for Chadwick Boseman. They just said straight up, who are we going to cast as Black Panther? Chadwick Boseman. Like, they just saw his last film roles and they said, yep, that's Black Panther right there. And that was it. That's what ended up getting him the role that made Black Panther what it is, really. So it's
I mean, it was a fantastic film, and he was perfect.
Absolutely, and especially, but on the opposite end of that, they had, when Robert Downey Jr. first got started in the Iron Man movies, they made him audition twice for the role, despite the fact they looked at him and went like, yeah, he's a fantastic actor, he definitely looks the part of Iron Man, but yeah, let's just audition him for this role and everything. So yeah.
Right. Well, but Iron Man was really the proving ground for that whole Marvel universe. He's so Tony Stark, though.
He is.
I mean, he is. So
he definitely is
well
very
done
much
casting on that, Marvel.
Absolutely, and here's to another 10 years by them as well. Now, another question that Stephen asks here is, what have been your thoughts on various voice actors of different types of mediums, such as John LaFontaine, who has voiced on movie trailers, the Man of a Thousand Voices Looney Tunes legend, Mel Blanc, and Tara Strong, who has voiced in primarily Western animation?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last name you said? It just kind of went wonky there, and I couldn't hear you.
Oh, that's all right. And Tara Strong, who's voiced in...
Oh, Tara Strong, okay. That's what I thought you said, but it didn't exactly sound like that on my end. Well, wow, those are a wide variety of different things. All legends, really. Obviously, I've never really worked with any of them. I don't know any of them personally, or, two of them are no longer with us, but yeah, all definitely incredible talents in their own rights. And I mean, Tara's been doing this since she was a little kid. She's been voice acting since she was a child, which I think is amazing. I wasn't in a position or situation to benefit from that, but yeah, I think that is awesome. I was fascinated from a very young age with voices, different accents, the way people delivered lines, listening. Just, I was fascinated with listening to voices on the radio or a TV commercial, and of course cartoons, like all kids, but just any kind of voiceover thing. I was so interested, and I would listen to things, and I would try to mimic like the delivery and the accent and all of that, and just try to. And in fact, when I was about 9 years old, I got this little white Sony cassette player. It was sort of this round mod-looking cassette player thing, and I would write these sketches and perform them either just by myself or with some of my friends or relatives, where we would do sort of like radio plays or whatever. I mean, really terrible sketches, because I was like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. But yeah, that was really my first voice acting, was making up these sketches and recording them on cassette tapes.
Wow. That's fantastic. That's really fantastic.
And you know, I was maybe not aware of all of the voice actors' names at that point, which actually even predates Tara Strong's career, because I'm a few years older than she is. But I was familiar with some of the voice actors' names, certainly, and knowing that, like Mel Blanc, for example, all those different voices that he did, and I was fascinated by that, and trying to create different characters on my own and do celebrity impersonations, which I was terrible at, but you can still come up with some good, interesting characters, even if you're not really imitating exactly that person. It can be inspirational for characters that you create.
That's definitely
I've gone
true.
way off the topic of the question.
But no, that's just absolutely fantastic. That's just really amazing. And then his last question we've got here is, who do you consider the most talented actor you've worked with in terms of range or unique ability that only that actor had or has?
Wow. That is tricky to answer for a couple of reasons. One, we don't work with the other actors ever. We're only ever recording by ourselves. So the only people in anime and in video games, usually, I mean, it's just like you and the director and the sound engineer, and that's it. So you're really not working with the other actors. But then in the sense that I've worked with them, in air quotes, like we've worked on these same projects together, gosh, I've worked with hundreds, I'm actually probably thousands of different people, I don't know. One of the most talented and most versatile performers I know is John Swasey, and I've known John since even before he was doing anime. John and I have known each other about 25 years now, and last time I checked on the Anime News Network, he was the most prolific male English voice actor of all time. So he's done just an incredible variety of roles, and he's one of the people that I know, certainly, that a lot of directors want to use John as a go-to guy to be able to bring him in to a series and voice 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 different characters, because he just has that incredible range.
That's absolutely fantastic, and that's definitely true, because John Swasey, as you said before, he's such a fantastic actor, and that's really fantastic that he was named, he got such an accolade like that in Anime News Network, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they have rankings. I mean, it's based on an empirical list of credits that you've done, so it's, not exactly like winning an award per se or anything, just a statistical fact. And I've always been, like I said, known John for a long time, and I've really always been impressed by the fact that he has been able to support himself and even a wife and 3 kids as a working actor. And I don't know how much people appreciate how impressive that is. For people to even make a living at all in this business is incredible, but nobody hustles like John Swasey. Years and years ago, I can remember back in the 90s, him sending out his demo tapes to ad agencies and producers and stuff, his like commercial demo tape, and sending them $1 strapped to the cassette tape, like, here's $1 for your time to listen to my demo. Just like nobody hustles like John. He's an amazing guy. And a really great guy, too.
He's absolutely
talented, but he's a great guy.
He is absolutely fantastic, and I had the chance to interview him a little bit on Hannatalk a few years ago, and he's just a fantastic actor and such a great person as well. Mm-hmm. And I would definitely love to have him back on board Hannatalk in the near future as well. So so hats off to him for getting such a statistic like that. So that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And to Stephen, when you be listening to this, hopefully those has answered your questions, and to anybody, I hope so as well, and to anybody out there who'll be listening to that, if you have any fan questions or any special messages you want me to give out to any of the actors I interview, I'll be sure to put announcements for who I'm interviewing on Hannatalk well in advance, so be sure to post your comments down below, and I'll be sure to give you a special shout out during the interview as well. So just keep it coming, guys, because this is fantastic.
Awesome.
Now, going across into Evangelion, now you sent me across an email just today of a very important video that I actually discovered about a couple of days ago, actually, of an Evangelion PSA announcement. So
right. Well, the thing is, we're talking about Red Bard, who is a YouTuber. She called it, and a lot of people refer to it as an Evangelion public service announcement. Okay, it's not. It never was. I mean, people call it that because it's me and Spike Spencer are the actors on the public service announcement. I mean, apart from the main voiceover guy talking during the ad, but yeah, Spike and I. We're actors. We do lots of other things. We haven't only worked on Evangelion. It has nothing to do with Evangelion whatsoever, but it is funny to think of it in terms of an Evangelion related thing.
It is funny to think of it in that sense. And I had the chance to watch the video in its full entirety, and it's just it was going like, wow. It's
really starting to rack up a lot of views now. I think it's starting to go a little bit viral here. So yeah, if anybody wants to look up Red Bard, Bard on YouTube, she did a great video last year about whether you can possibly live only on Evangelion merchandise. I will just give you this little spoiler: you can. Anyway, so she did do a terrific video that just came out a few days ago about the so-called Lost Evangelion AIDS PSA, and it was very good. She did a great job.
Well, hats off to Red Bard for putting that video up, and special shout out to you, Red, for doing that. That was fantastic. And of course, thank you to Tiffany Grant as well in helping to make that happen as well. So, yeah. Now, speaking about, of course, with that video as well, what the other surprising thing was, apart from that, was the PSA that you and Spike Spencer were involved in, was the other surprising part of it was actually when, I think it was in the last episode of Evangelion, was when Spike Spencer, I think, went on to a bit of a rant at the end of that series, like kind of like Deadpool breaking the fourth wall kind of thing. Going like, just like, is this how it ends? Really? Is this how it's going to end? Because I hope the movie really goes well in this. What happens? Do you run out of ink?
Exactly.
So to me, that was kind of like Deadpool shooting Ryan Reynolds as he's reading the Green Lantern script, meta crazy. So to me, to me, talk about like 3 levels deep meta. It's just absolutely nuts. So that to me was the surprising part about that video, really.
Yeah. Now, of course, that's not really canon. I mean, that's an extra thing. That's not really in the final episode. That's just
Right.
a spike.
But I'm just thinking.
But still very funny.
I'm just thinking it would have been absolutely hilarious just to hear that at the end of the final episode like that. Just hear that just coming out of nowhere like that. But
I know. It's great. I'm glad that it exists.
Because that's just like the most meta comment you could make about Evangelion that I think anyone has ever spoken about before. And to even hear it coming out of Spike Spencer, one of the actors, is nuts. So.
Right. Well, I mean, that was, Spike's genuine reaction. Well, I think he kind of had the same reaction as a lot of people did seeing the show. Confusion. Like, what? Was that it?
That's exactly on that. That's exactly true on that sense. In the same way, like Deadpool just absolutely just makes commentary on Green Lantern, for example. He knows.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds knows exactly how we feel about Green Lantern. Even he knows.
Yeah, no kidding.
Even he knows how he feels about it as well. So.
Right. Exactly.
Now.
Pretty much the same way George Clooney feels about the Batman that he did.
Yeah. Yep.
And the nipples.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Nipples, George.
But that's absolutely fantastic about that video. So. Now, speaking a little bit more on Evangelion, last time news came out on the series was when Netflix announced they would be redubbing the series with brand new actors. And you, Spike Spencer and Amanda Winn-Lee were quite vocal about the announcement. How do you feel about it now? And did you ever get the chance to watch the Netflix version of the series?
Well, I can tell you that I don't now, nor have I ever had a Netflix subscription. So all I have seen of it is some of the videos that people have posted where they're kind of do the side by side of like the original dub and the new dub. I'm kind of past it now. It was an incredibly traumatic thing when that was all happening, when they were recasting it, all of that, and of course leading up to when it finally came out. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I didn't know how it was going to be received. It was all, so much unknown. And really now that it has come out and that's all kind of blown over, I mean, obviously I guess people will watch it on Netflix and I don't know, whatever. I had thought, of course you play out all these crazy what if scenarios in your mind, and I would think of like, oh my gosh, well, what if everyone just loves it so much and they like it better than our version, and then nobody ever wants me to come to anime conventions anymore, and like none of that happened. So I still very much welcome at anime cons, and yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm satisfied that what we did will stand the test of time, and I think at some point it will be resurrected. I mean, obviously it's kind of difficult to get copies of it now because the official DVDs haven't been out for many, many years, but I think it'll still exist, and I think at some point it will be released again. I really do think so, because I think the quality will stand the test of time.
I definitely agree on that, and that's absolutely fantastic. And I had the chance to see some of the side-by-side comparisons on with the original versus the Netflix dub, and I have, and I know that it starts getting into like conversations and debates about which dub is better than that, or is the sub better than the dub, that sort of thing. Really, I think it's just really to me it starts blowing off into for me, when it starts going into debates like that, it will start escalating to World War III or something like that. So for me, it's just like, you know what, just, I love both of them. I love both of those dubs for very different reasons. So that's my answer to that, really. So, yeah.
Well, okay.
So that's just my answer to that. And I say to anybody out there that says, just enjoy both of them for what they are. They're both different for completely different reasons. Just enjoy each one of them for what they are, really. So, yeah, it's just really a matter of personal preference. And, that it's great to have an opinion, but don't, try to make a big deal out of it or anything. So, that's just my personal opinion,
Sure.
really. So, but moving across onto more into Evangelion, last time we spoke about it a bit more was when they did the Rebirth films, and now we'll be having, yes.
Right, yeah, and the fourth one is theoretically coming out in June. I don't know if that'll end up getting pushed back at all because of COVID, but yeah, I mean, the current release date, as far as I know, is still, I think, June 27th or something like that.
I actually read about that was going to be the release date for that movie, and from what I've heard about it, not sure if it has been confirmed, but this is supposed to be the final film in the Rebirth series, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, it was always said that there were going to be 4 of them, so presumably this will be the last one, unless he changes his mind. So, there's always that possibility.
There is always that possibility. Now, I know for a fact that I think it was at a comic convention. I'm not sure exactly where it was earlier this year, but they actually screened the first 10 minutes of the film to fans.
Yeah.
And I actually had the chance to watch some of the footage from that comic convention, and reading across in some of the comments, some people going when one person's comment I think was talking about the 2012 film, which I think was the first of the Rebirth series, going I have no idea.
The first one came out many years before that.
Okay.
I just want to say, you're kidding yourself if you think any of that is going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't think any of that's really going to be in the movie. I think the chances of that are practically nil. But, it could happen.
It could happen. It could potentially happen. But I was watching through the footage and reading across on some of the comments, people going watching, I think, talking about, I think it was the first movie or one of the Rebirth films, going I have no idea what's going on. And then watching the 10 minutes of that footage from supposedly is what it's going to be in the final movie. Supposedly, they went
yeah,
I still don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
But
no one knows what's going on. I just think that they made it as a teaser. I just do not even believe for a moment that any of that is going to. I haven't even bothered to watch it because I quite frankly don't believe that any of it's going to be in there. That's what they've done, with the first films, as far as, having a trailer at the end of it, oh, here's what's coming up in the next movie. No, it's not. None of that was in there. So I just don't believe it.
It's basically just Hulk walking across with the rest of the Avengers in the Infinity War trailer. It's oh yeah, we're going to see Hulk in Infinity War. Nope, you're not.
Yeah. So. No, that's what I say about people who want to talk about that supposed first 10 minutes of the movie. Yeah. It was at Comic-Con last year, but
right.
It might have been Anime Expo, but I'm pretty sure it was Comic-Con. In any case, just don't count on it. That's all I'm saying.
Now, my question to you is, with this supposed final film, what do you hope to see answered in this film in particular?
Who the hell is Mari?
What?
I mean, really, who is she? Is she just a Meganiko character? I mean, what was the point? What is she there to do? What is her purpose? Who is she? I mean, that's one of my biggest questions is,
wow.
What the hell? Who is she? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I haven't been able to figure out any reason that she's there.
Wow.
So that would be my first question is, who the hell is Mari?
Well, hopefully they'll answer...
If they even answer that, then that would be great.
Well, hopefully they'll answer that question in this movie, which goes on to my next question here, which is, Do you feel like there is more story to be told with Evangelion down the line, or do you feel like that everything has been said and done?
Um, there could potentially be more of the story. It seems to me in a way that perhaps, and this is just me psychoanalyzing from afar, but it seems like maybe this is kind of tortured Anno in a way. Like, this was his masterpiece, his grand opus that he created at a fairly young age. You know, he was still in his 30s when he did this.
Oh
And
wow.
so he did that, like, and then what? You know, you create this thing that's sort of this legendary, iconic masterwork that has a huge international cult following, and then, you know, just where does one go from there? So he feels somehow compelled to keep rehashing it.
Mm.
And I feel like maybe he's just too close to it. I don't know. So maybe if there are versions of Ava in the future, it'll be. I mean, to me, I always think that he's like the Japanese George Lucas. He keeps
Mm.
trying to fix it, you know? And maybe at some point in the future, I don't think maybe, I think it really will definitely happen, but there's going to be some future version, like, you know, like the Disney sequels, the last trilogy of Star Wars. You know, I can see something like that happening one day, like the torch being passed. Maybe that will
Mm.
happen.
I definitely see something like that happening as well in that fact. And I mean, it's funny that you mentioned about with like George Lucas and with obviously him passing the torch across to Disney, which we all know how they did the Star Wars films at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and which for me personally, I mean, I absolutely love the new Star Wars trilogy, as I'm pretty sure that fans are going to come right at me with pitchforks for saying that comment, but just
I
make it.
think they, in my opinion, I think they got progressively, well, I don't know another word, worse. I loved episode 7, and then 8 was a little bit, huh, and then 9 was like, okay, I saw it,
That's definitely true on
and
that.
the end.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
they did of course announce that they wouldn't be going back to saga films for quite some time. They were just going to go to more solo based kind of movies before deciding to go back into the saga trilogy. So it's totally possible they may end up doing the same thing for Evangelion, just do more like solo based movies that are not necessarily tied to a trilogy or anything like
hmm,
that
yeah,
fact.
that's true. I mean, that could be interesting as well, and you could get more of the backstory of the individual characters.
That's definitely true on that. And speaking
Hmm.
about, of course, with Comic Con, now you, Spike Spencer, and Amanda Winn-Lee were in
Yes.
Australia for Supernova this year.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
We were in Melbourne, and then we were in Gold Coast.
f-
And in fact, we were in Gold Coast at the same time that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson were quarantined there.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That
I did not get I have not had COVID-19, at least as far as I know. And but I said if I do get it, I will tell everyone that I got it from Tom Hanks. So that did not happen though.
wow.
That did not happen.
That's nuts. So, what was it like to come back to Australia and have the three Musketeers together again in an event like this?
Well, yeah, well, we had never done a convention together in Australia. Both Spike and I had been to Australia several times before. I mean, he's living in Gold Coast right now. He did not come back to the United States. He's much safer there, as it happens with the current pandemic. But yeah, that was Amanda's first time in
Oh
Australia.
wow.
And we actually had done a convention together in Houston back in September of last year. And that was only the second convention that the three of us had all done together. And
Wow.
the first time that we had done a convention together in like 18 years. So it had been a long time. And I mean, technically, right now, we are supposed to appear together in June in Sydney and in Perth, but I'm, yeah, I don't know if that will happen or not. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
Absolutely. But that's fantastic that that was really kind of the first time you've all been in a convention together in Australia like this. So it's a
Yeah,
huge
that was our
deal.
first time together in Australia.
So that's a really, really big deal. And hopefully in next year or the year after that, that you all three of you will get to come back. So
Yeah, I mean, that would be terrific. I always have a great time in Australia. Just for the Aussie listeners, I always like to stress this because I think it is really so cool and special. But Australia is the only country besides Japan where Evangelion ran on regular television, and
wow.
so it has a unique place in Australian fandom because of that, because there were people who could just watch it on TV, and in the United States, it was never like that. It did, and of course, when it aired, that was, back in the late 90s when it aired on TV originally in Australia. So it was one of the first anime to be on TV there. Now, in the United States, it did not air in its entirety until like late 2005.
Oh
So it was
wow.
many years later, and it was actually on Cartoon Network. So it was like a cable channel that you have to pay to have that channel. It wasn't just in everybody's house. And also, they put it on, it was pretty late at night. I mean, it
Mm.
was on at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. So, just not as many people saw it.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely,
Yep.
just hearing that story just right there, I think I remember seeing an advertisement for Evangelion back when they did Adult Swim, which I think was around the same
Uh-huh.
time that they had in Australia, but I think this is around the late 2000s, 2005, 2006 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually didn't watch Evangelion at that point until to, I think around, uh, 4 years ago. 4 years ago is
Yeah.
when I first saw
Mm-hmm.
Evangelion, but I remembered seeing the
Yeah.
advertisement for that because I used to watch like Inuyasha and there was Initial D, so Adult Swim at that
Mm-hmm.
time, and this was on Cartoon Network at the
Yeah.
time, which was in Australia
Yeah.
of all places, which was crazy. So yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But no, but that's absolutely fantastic, and like that's really amazing that our country had been one of the very first to get Evangelion well before the
Right.
US even got it, which is amazing.
Right. Well, I mean, it was in the U.S. on home video, but just not on television,
Mm,
which is a big difference because people usually the shows that people gravitate to first, as far as like their anime fandom or whatever they're fans of, TV shows and so forth. It's usually something they're able to watch for free on television.
right.
That's usually how that all starts. So it was and just going on other first, it was available on home video in the United States uh, first anywhere. It was on
Mm,
home video in the United States before it was released in Japan.
wow.
So
That's that
that is a fact.
that is absolutely fantastic and
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So now talking about some of your latest roles. Now you got to play in Fate, and if I apologize if I mispronounce this title here, in Fate
Uh huh.
Kalied Season 2 as Sella, taking over for Beth
Yeah.
Lazaro, who played the character back in Season 1. Now, how did it feel to step into a character like Sella and in a series like that? And how nervous were you taking over for Beth Lazaro?
Well, I wasn't, I wasn't familiar with her, and I'd never seen that one. I'd never seen the original series, so I don't know her personally, so there's no, I guess, like direct attachment to that, and I don't know. That's been a few years ago. That was like back in 2016 that we did that. So, gosh, at this point, I can't remember what the circumstances were, like if she moved or if she was unavailable. I don't even remember, honestly, at this point. So, as with anything, I just try to go in there and do my very best. But yeah, I played Sella in Fate Collide Liner Prisma Ilia 2, and then in Fate Collide Liner Prisma Ilia 2 Hertz. So, yeah, both of those. And, I was very happy to do it. And I hope that I did a good job in voice matching with the original voice actor. But, yeah, again, it was not somebody that I personally knew. And it's possible at the time that they may have played a clip of her for me to voice match with, because I've had to do that before. But honestly, at this point, I don't want to mislead anybody, because I really don't remember. I don't remember exactly how all that went down.
That's no problem at all, but that's fantastic though. Now, as mentioned about before, that the series is a spin-off from the Fate Stay Night series, but
Right,
it kind of set off in kind of an alternate universe somewhere. And asking about that, what would you ever want to see yourself coming back into the Fate franchise?
Well, sure. I mean, it is, like you say, it is a big franchise. It's a kind of a banner title. So sure. I mean, I would be thrilled to get to work on other iterations of that.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned about, of course, with several Clamp series that you worked on. You spoke about with Angelic Layer, but you also worked on
Yeah.
Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. Now,
Yes, I did. I was in a couple of episodes of that as Lord Ashura, or King Ashura.
Fantastic.
Episodes 8, 9, and 10 of the TV series, in case anybody was wondering. And so the thing about Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle is that all the characters in there, if I'm not mistaken, there might be some that this don't apply to, but all of them are characters from other Clamp series. So, right, so King Ashura, or Lord Ashura, was originally in Rigveda as a little bit more of an androgynous character. Like, you don't really know if the character is male, female, sort of like a non-specific gendered character.
Now, because as you just mentioned about before, Clamp is really best known for crossing over, like designing characters that look like previous characters that they've had in other series. So kind of creating like a little Clamp universe in some way, as they're best known for. Like,
yeah, they love to do that crossover thing.
So which is absolutely meta, because I think I remembered when I first saw a Clamp series, I think was Angelic Layer, and then I'd gone into Chobits, which was,
right,
I think,
I was just going to say Chobits, yeah.
Yes, and I discovered like some of the characters from Angelic Layer in Chobits, and I just went like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Right, yeah.
So,
and the one other Clamp show that I worked on many years ago was Miyuki-chan in Wonderland, and I wrote I did the adaptation for the. It was only ever subtitled. It was never dubbed, but I did the adaptation for the subtitle script on that. So I have worked on a total of 3 Clamp titles.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Now, little tiny bit of trivia for you there.
Absolutely. Now, of course, with of course, I think it was from a couple of years ago when they had announced the Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Cards anime, which I think they did just one season for, and I think we're all just now waiting for season 2 to officially premiere. Will we hope to see you in another Clamp series down the line?
Well, gosh, I sure hope so. I mean, they're certainly very prolific. I haven't ever worked on any of the Card Captor franchise, so but I would love to, of course.
Fantastic. Well, fingers crossed it definitely happens when they announce season 2 for it. Because I know for a fact they're still writing the manga for the Clear Card series at the moment. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so fingers crossed it ends up happening. Now, another series that you did a while back ago was one that I just actually discovered quite recently was Amaji Brilliant Park as Moffle, who is one of the mascots in the series,
Yes. Uh-huh.
who in the series has been pointed out as a knockoff of Bonta from Full Metal Panic, which is a character in series
Yeah.
which is a character in series that you starred in yourself. So,
Yes.
what
Mm-hmm.
what what was it like playing that character and in the series? And did you discover any of the supposed comparisons between those two characters?
Well, I mean, they're really not similar at all. I mean, well, for one, just very, very obvious thing, Bonta-kun never speaks. The only thing Bonta-kun can say is "sumafu." That's all he can say, or some version of that, like "sumo, sumofu, sumofufu." I mean, that's really all he can ever say. And of course, Moful actually speaks, and the idea is that they're all fairies.
Mm.
So, he very much bristles at this notion that he's anything to do with that other theme park mascot, because they're fairies and they're the real thing. It's not a guy in a suit. That's who they really, really are. So that's the twist on that, of course. But I mean, as soon as that series came out, everybody was immediately asking me, hey, Tiffany, are you going to be in Amagi Brilliant Park? And I mean, naturally, I had no idea. But then, as soon as that was licensed by Sentai, and my friend Chris Ayers was the director on it, and he told me that he was going to be directing it, and I said, "Oh, I guess I'm in that." It was just seemed like kind of an obvious thing to do. But I can tell you that in the Japanese version, it is not the same voice actor.
Oh wow.
So,
Fantastic.
so yeah, it's a different voice actor in the Japanese. It's not the same person who played Bonta-kun, who played Moful.
Wow.
Only in the English version, but I did enjoy it a lot.
That's fantastic. And I actually saw clips from the English dub of that series when your character appears in it. I'm not sure exactly which clip it was. I think it was from one of the episodes in particular or something like that. And it took me, when I heard your voice coming out of that character, I almost thought, it almost took me a little while to go like, wait, that's Tiffany Grant? Because
well, that's great, because that's the nicest thing that anybody could ever say to a voice actor is, I didn't know it was you.
Yes.
That is the ultimate compliment. That's absolutely what we live for. So anytime I do a character and people go, oh, I didn't know that was you, like, perfect. Exactly what I wanted to know.
That's fantastic. So, and it's just absolutely amazing. So, now talking about another series that you mentioned about before, which was Girls on Panzea. Now, as you mentioned about before, that they've started on a 6-part anime film series, I think, which was after the original, anime series, because you played the character Midoroka Sono or Sodoko as far back as 2013. So
right, yeah, I've played her in all iterations of the series, OVAs, their film. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, with this 6-part anime film series we have, because they just did, I think, the second part of the film series last year, is what do you hope to see answered in this 6-part series? And what's it been like working on a series like Girls on Panzea?
Well, it's Panzer.
A Panzer.
Which is, it's just the name of a German tank. I did the script adaptation for their film. Oh my gosh, there are just way too many characters in that show. I'm so don't know if there are particularly any burning questions that I specifically had that I wanted to have answered. I mean, any real practical ones, like how can they possibly, all live on this ship, and how big is the ship, and just crazy things like that. No, it was just a fun show to work on, and of course I would love to get to do it again, and hopefully I will whenever that's brought over and dubbed.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. Now, I had the chance to see some of the clips from the series myself, and the thing that really struck me about it when I was reading the premise for that series, and especially watching the clips from it, it's like they took a typical sports anime and they decided, all right, let's put some tanks in, let's put some tanks in this thing, and let's put some tanks and World War II references in here, and let's just go crazy. And it's like.
That's really basically what it is. That's kind of the way I describe it to people is it's like, well, it's like a sports anime, except instead of playing like softball or volleyball or something, the girls are actually fighting with World War II era tanks, yet somehow they don't actually hurt each other when they're doing these battles.
Which, just the premise and the concept alone in that is just like, wow. It's like
it's really kind of it's a show aimed at military otaku. That's definitely what it is, and sort of people who are fans of like Strike Witches. It's all in that vein.
That's definitely true on that.
Yeah, and for example, everything to do with the tanks is extremely accurate. Every little nut and bolt and every detail on those tanks is exactly spot on accurate, which I know from a friend of mine who is a military otaku. So that is very important to their core audience.
Right, which that I definitely picked up on that when I saw the clips from that, in that they definitely tried to make it as accurate as possible to the tanks during like those military style tanks. But from this one particular clip I saw, which I think was from episode 3, I think it was, where they colored the tanks in like all different colors to say, yeah, that way we know which team we are, we're not going to end up shooting ourselves. So
yeah.
It's going like right, and I'm just going in the back of my head going like, I honestly would like to know how on earth the creators for this series, and for the manga, for that matter, who come up with such weird concepts like this, just go like, do they just have ideas coming out of a hat or something like that? They just go like, all right, let's pick up from the hat here, please. Let's go, Master Chef and sports. Let's do food wars. So.
Right. Yeah.
It's just pretty.
I don't know.
It's just pretty funny, but it's absolutely fantastic. So that's really great to hear. Now, last year you reprised your role as Nojiko in the TV special of One Piece, in episode of East Blue, which is a retelling of the entire East Blue arc from the original series. What was it like to come back into that part of into the One Piece universe, and especially do a retelling of the first arcs from the series?
Yeah, that was pretty weird, actually. Because I mean, we recorded that back in like 2008, and I mean, I can still pretty vividly remember recording all that stuff. So that was interesting because it was kind of just redoing all that same stuff again, but they had, recordings of the original, so I could be sure that I'm, matching the original, intonation and everything of the character, so that it's not drifting away. But honestly, Nojiko is pretty close to just my normal voice, so Nojiko is not that hard for me to get to. Of course, I have to do Nojiko as a little girl as well, so there's that aspect to it. But yeah.
Fantastic.
It was pretty neat getting to come back and do Nojiko again after all that time.
Fantastic. And last year, as I mentioned before in the intro, that was the 20th anniversary of One Piece as a series. How did
Oh, okay. Yeah.
did you ever when you first heard about did you hear about that was going to be the celebrating 20 years for the series? And did you celebrate that milestone in particular?
I will be perfectly honest with you and tell you that until you said that, I really did not know it was 20 years because it hadn't been. Obviously, Funimation didn't start dubbing it 20 years ago, so I really did not realize that. And of course, my participation in One Piece, at overall, the size of the roles that I've had in it are relatively small compared to, the main cast who are in, Colleen and Lucy and so forth, who are in, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm much more aware of things like the, Evangelion trivia.
Right.
I did not know, but thank you for telling me.
That's fantastic.
I think that is awesome. I mean, good for them.
It is absolutely fantastic that they hit on that. Not only did they do this TV special on the year of celebrating 20 years of an incredible series, but even doing the original, the film One Piece Stampede last year, which was intended to be kind of like a love letter to the series, to the fans, as well as a celebration of what the series has done, really. So there you go. Now, speaking of...
any series that's gone on for that long, that's, I have to applaud that. That's pretty amazing.
I have to applaud them on that as well, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, speaking about, of course, with, I think we mentioned about before last time we talked, there was reports going about of a live-action Evangelion series at the time, but...
Yeah.
But going on to One Piece, though, because people have been speaking a lot about that series because it seems like it's going to come to fruition. There was an article done on fan casting that was done by fans giving their own casting choices for the series already, specifically for the three admirals in the series, which is Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru. Some of them are actually pretty surprising choices that they're given off. Like they've given for Akainu, Josh Brolin, Thanos himself, Will Smith as Aokiji, and a bit of a surprising one of that is Adam Sandler as Kizaru. So, did you ever come across that article yourself? And what do you think about that casting if the series comes to fruition?
Well, I know for sure that I would have nothing to do with the casting. I mean, that would be out of my hands. It's probably almost never going to be exactly what fans want it to be, but, right now, I guess, who knows if that actually will happen or not. I don't know. I mean, those are all great actors, so...
That's definitely
true.
As
far as I know, that would be good.
As far as I know, I definitely picture Josh Brolin as Akainu because obviously Thanos and of course Cable from the Deadpool movies, he can pull off that real Batman level good guy in that sense, or Punisher-like character in that sense. I can definitely picture Will Smith as Aokiji in that sense, in playing... For anybody that's ever familiar with the three admirals from the anime series, they all have very distinct personalities. So I can definitely picture Josh Brolin and Will Smith as those two admirals in particular. Adam Sandler is actually a bit of a surprising one, and the reason I think people thought Adam Sandler was because he was spotted. There was this picture that he was spotted in of him wearing a yellow shirt that looks exactly like the colors that Kizaru wears as an admiral, as well as him sporting the goatee and the glasses he was wearing. So they just went with that based on how he looked. So...
Well, sometimes that's all you need.
That's true. But my other question for you with regards to this live-action series is that who would you want to personally see cast as Nojiko and Nami for the series?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've honestly never really thought about that. I, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have anything for you on that. I mean, I know they're very young, so anybody I would say now would probably be too old to do it by the time they got around to it. I mean, that was kind of the thing when, the Evangelion live action film was in pre-production and people kept speculating about who the actors would be, and they're all teenagers, so anybody that you would think now, yeah, that would be a great choice. That by the time they do it, they're going to be 30. So
that's definitely true. So just gonna have to wait and see what happens with that series. But yeah. Now, speaking about a little bit more on the future of One Piece, because the creator for the series has been quite open about to the fans, and especially in a lot of articles, talking about the series and his own idea for how he wants the series to end, how long he thinks it's going to go on for. My question to you is, what have been your thoughts on how you think the series will end? And with Nojiko, because we know that in the post-time skip, we've seen her in the manga, but will there ever be the possibility for you to come back into the post-time skip episodes?
If somebody calls me and books me, sure. But I mean, I have no idea. I mean, I haven't. I'm not a scholar of it like you, so I don't. I certainly don't know as much about One Piece as you do. So I think I don't really have an answer. But I mean, obviously, I would love to have the chance to come back and do Nojiko again. Since I voiced her the first time, I've had the chance to come back occasionally where there would be like a flashback episode or something of that nature. And then one of the previous movies where I had just like one line in it. I think I was in a fire. But yeah, I mean, of course, I would always be excited to see more Nojiko, especially, it'd be cool to see her maybe in the future as more of an adult.
I could definitely see that.
I guess she technically was an adult the last time we saw her, but, really an adult, like she was 18 or something, so, I mean, like a real adult.
That's definitely true on that, because I remember when they did the, last year when they did the release for One Piece Stampede, because everyone has been waiting for more dubbed episodes, because they'd already started doing the rest of the other episodes post, I think it was the Fishman Island arc, which was stopping at 574. It was announced by Colin Clinkenbeard and Justin Cook that they're starting work on more dubbed episodes. Hopefully, they said around the end of last year, sometime starting around this year, I think. So, but it's really fantastic to hear that we're going to get more dubbed episodes down the line. So hopefully we'll see Nojiko come back in the series. I mean, because like we've seen like previous characters in the series, I know, come back into the post time skip episodes, so I know they'll have to follow up on other characters that we haven't seen for quite some time. So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I was very pleased that they decided to bring me back, even though they had to record me remotely. It was really great that they did that. They could have recast me, but they didn't, and I was really happy and pleased that they decided to use me again to reprise my role.
Absolutely, which is fantastic. Now, speaking about, of course, with live action work, now you've also done some recent work in a few video game projects.
Yes, I have.
That's right. Now, my question to you with this is that with the recent success of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which I think many of us can agree had finally broken the curse of the video game adaptation, because that film was fantastic. Do you think that what's one video game project that you worked on would you personally want to see turned into a live action film or a TV series?
Oh, gosh. Oh, I don't know. I've probably only worked on maybe like a dozen video games. I haven't worked on that many of them. Wow, well, any of them where I had a part in it. There's like the very first video game that I worked on years ago, which it was called Unlimited Saga. And I never played it, but I'm not a gamer, so I've not really played any of these games. But the characters were interesting. They played this sort of little critter thing called Armic. And I thought the characters in it were really interesting. So the main thing that people seem to complain about the game is that it was difficult to figure out and to understand how it worked. But the characters in it I really liked, and that would be interesting. And then Deus Ex, which I mentioned before, Deus Ex 2 Invisible War, had a pretty good story behind it. So that would be pretty cool if one of those were made into a movie. Actually, a game that I worked on last year, which currently it's slated to be released in May. Mm-hmm. It's going to be on Steam. It's called Neversong, which was originally called Once Upon a Coma.
Yes.
But the creator, Thomas Brush, who is the developer on the game, he had a very successful, very critically acclaimed game that he released a few years ago called Pinstripe, and it is just a beautiful, beautiful game, rather Tim Burton-esque in the design and the score, which is really hauntingly beautiful, and that would be a great property to be turned into a film. I think that's a prime source right there. It's got a really interesting story behind it. The animation is beautiful. The music is beautiful, and it also had a pretty major role in it. Actually, had 2 roles in the show in the game. But I would love that to be turned into a film at some point.
That's fantastic.
That would be amazing.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I think because of the success of Sonic the Hedgehog, like how much that turned into an absolute success, and that kind of in a way broke the curse of video game adaptations. Because here's to hope, and of course now with I think it was with Sony or PlayStation announcing that they'll be developing a live action TV series on The Last of Us, which is like one of the best games of all time. So it just goes to prove that, they said, we can do amazing films on video game properties. We just have to nail the characters, we have to nail the story.
Right.
And that's exactly that's what they did with Sonic the Hedgehog. So here's to hoping they'll keep that up in the long run.
I want to get in a little plug. If anybody would like to get a look at Neversong, you can actually play the demo of it right now on Game Jolt.
Fantastic.
So Game Jolt has a demo that you can play of Neversong right now, and the developer tells me that it's going to be the official release sometime later in May. And anyway, I'm like I said, very, very excited about that. People will be able to play that on a number of platforms, and I know for sure that it's going to be on Steam. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I'm very excited about that.
Fantastic. Now, you've mentioned about that you've worked across from anime to video games, but my other question to this one here is, would you see yourself stepping into the world of Western animation?
I would love to do that at some point. That would be great. Of course, I'm available. I do currently live in Atlanta, which is where Cartoon Network is based. So really, really hoping at some point to be able to work on some of their original projects. That would be incredible. That would be a big thing on my wish list for sure.
Fantastic. Now, that would definitely be awesome to have, really. So fingers crossed. Now, now on to the next few questions here. So, What are two shows that you've worked on would you want to see a crossover between story-wise and character-wise?
Oh, well, my goodness. That's a great question, and actually something that I have truthfully never ever thought about. I know that that's something probably that a lot of fans sit around thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was a crossover between this thing and that thing? I don't have an immediate answer for that, so I'm sorry.
That's
I've never
okay.
considered it.
I think for me personally, I think what would be a really good crossover to have, I think would be like Detective Conan and possibly One Piece together in that. So that would be an interesting
Okay.
crossover. I think if they just did a
Okay.
special on those two sort of series, really.
Yeah.
Now,
There was a fan who used to write to me emails. This has been many years ago since I've heard from him, but he was trying to dream up a crossover between Sonic the Hedgehog and a show called Noir. And I can't think of any two shows that could possibly be more different than Sonic the Hedgehog and Noir, but that's the craziest mashup I've ever heard of.
fantastic.
And you continue with your next question, please. It's
Absolutely.
getting rather late here on my side of
Of
the
course.
ocean, so.
Of course. Now,
Yeah.
what has been your view on the voice acting and animation industry within the entertainment industry? And if you could change one thing about the entertainment industry, what would that be?
Um, well, I mean, probably the same complaint that a lot of other working voice actors like myself have. This idea that you have to have all of these really big name Hollywood celebrities in an animated film. I don't think that in most cases, I'm not going to say every case, but in most cases, I don't think it necessarily does a lot to make the film more successful
Mm?
at the box office or critically so. Bringing in people who are typically movie actors and putting them behind a microphone, and paying them millions of dollars. And it's not even about me just being like jealous. Oh, I wish I would get millions of dollars. But, some people, yes, they're very good at certain roles. Mel Gibson was great in Chicken Run, not so much in Pocahontas. It just, playing to certain people's strengths. I mean, Eddie Murphy has had, done some very successful animation voiceover. Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, in the Toy Story films, of course, with Tom Hanks. And, that's something, and it's something that we all complain about a lot, honestly. It's like, they're taking all of our jobs. But, yeah, when I see a movie that's advertised, Trolls or something, and it's a movie that's, especially when they're aimed at kids, like, kids don't know who James Corden is.
Mm.
And they're marketing, it's Peter Rabbit starring James Corden. It's like the kids, they don't know who James Corden is. They're not going to see it. They're like going to see it because it's Bunny Rabbits. So I don't know. I mean, I love James Corden, but yeah, I don't know. Just that's probably my biggest thing is that studios are still absolutely convinced, when they're promoting animated films, that they make a big deal of focusing on who the actors are. They do it in Japan too. They do it with all of like the Ghibli movies. In the Ghibli movies, they don't put like the regular voice talent that the anime fans are big fans of all of these people that are in the TV series or any of the other anime films. Those people don't work on Ghibli movies.
Wow.
They don't. They're not in those movies. That's all like big Japanese movie stars are in those movies. That's exactly what they do over there.
I definitely agree on that, in that sense for that matter, because I think that like with, as you mentioned about before, with voice actors that are in the anime industry, for that matter, it's like the only time that people actually know about actors in those scopes is through comic conventions or if they're hardcore anime fans and they know about these actors from these series that go to that they meet at these conventions, and it's like they need like these big name actors to help put them up further on the pedestal or something like that. So, and I definitely agree on that in that sense for that matter. And I can say straight up that when I first and this will finish it off pretty quickly. That was my final question. So.
Oh, sure.
So back when. And I can say straight up that every time I've gone to a comic convention, and I will continue to do so till the end of time, is every time I've gone to a comic convention, it's been to meet the voice actors. It's been primarily for that. Because I see all of you, because I see all of you as my rock stars right there.
Oh, thank you.
That's absolutely no problem at all. Tiffany Grant.
We're the rock stars without the paychecks.
That's definitely, well.
And before we go, I do want to get in one other little plug, and it is actually for my very next project that's coming out, and it's going to be released later this month, April 22nd, which is Earth Day, and it's a mobile game. It's called Bloom Barrage, Barrage, Bloom Barrage. It's competitive gardening, which is much more fun than it probably sounds like. But I play the main character in that, Skip, and he is a mouse lemur. He's adorable. And anyway, so I just wanted to get a little plug for Bloom Barrage in there. So
that's fantastic.
For that, April 22nd.
That's absolutely fantastic, and looking forward to it as well. Tiffany Grant, thank you very much indeed. It's always an absolute honor.
You are quite welcome, my dear.
Anytime at all. And is there anything you'd like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Yes, absolutely. This is a rough time. I mean, none of us have ever been through anything like this. I mean, a massive global pandemic that we're living through. And I know a lot of us are going stir crazy, and we're shut up in our houses, and we all want to go outside. And I mean, I really do too. I go out walking in my neighborhood at like 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm very socially distant. Anyway, gosh, if we can just all hang in there for a few more weeks and, just all be in it separately together, as it were, and we'll make it through. We will make it through, and we'll have anime conventions again, and we'll all get to see each other in person, and it'll be great. It'll be great, and we can really do this, and we can save a lot of lives and keep a lot of people from being sick. So let's all work on that.
That's absolutely fantastic, and that's absolutely great advice to hear. Honestly, if this was a TV show right now and there was a live studio audience right next to me at this point, they'd be giving a standing ovation to that right now. So I can tell you, I can say straight up right there. So, but that's absolutely wonderful advice there. And so, guys, if you would like to find out more about Tiffany Grant, you can catch her on her latest projects, which I'll be sure to put links for in the description. And don't forget to subscribe down below to Hannatalk, and be sure to leave any requests, suggestions for the series at all. Thank you all so much. This is Simon and Tiffany Grant signing off. Stay safe.
Thank you.
See you later.